Good afternoon from the National Weather Service in Raleigh. It's Nick Petro with your winter weather briefing here this 12:30, January 25th, this Sunday. And yeah, we're well into this event. Obviously, we're kind of in between the. It was kind of a two-part precipitation event. The first part last night and early this morning, and the second part coming late this afternoon and this evening. So we're kind of in the intermission phase, if you will, or halftime, or however you want to, whatever sports analogy you want to use. But we're kind of in the middle. So what has changed? Well, we updated sleet and freezing rain totals to show you basically what's left to come, and of course we're going to do some other things here with this briefing. But you know what? Let me just take you through the slides real quick, right from the get-go, and then we'll go look at live radar and what's happened so far. So right now, these slides represent how much we have observed. What do I mean by observed? Like basically people calling us and telling us this is what they've gotten. Or, we sometimes harvest reports from social media, but from Skywarn, that's very important too. Thanks to all of our Skywarn and amateur radio friends who have provided storm reports. Folks, if you want to let us know how much you've gotten, and if you could break it out by sleet and or freezing rain, that would be great. I'll show you a slide at the end that shows you how to measure ice. So bear with me here for just a sec. Couple different ways you can get that to us. Number one, for our public safety and media partners who are on Slack, you can send it to us that way. You can always email it to me. You can post it on our social media methods. However you can get it to us, that would be very much appreciated. Okay, so generally speaking, along and north of 85 is where we got the most sleet-snow combination. And again, that shouldn't surprise anybody, right? That's where we typically get the most snow and sleet and the most wintry weather. 1 to 2 inches of snow-sleet combination have been reported from Lexington, Greensboro, Burlington, Roxborough, Henderson, northward. I live in western Johnston County, and I had a solid, half inch, 2/3 of an inch of sleet, and then I had probably at least an eighth of an inch of freezing rain on top of that. The freezing rain, by the way, are on the right. And you'll notice, well, wait a minute, north of 85, I got some freezing rain, but it looks like folks to my south and east got more. Well, exactly, because those folks got less sleet, more freezing rain. More freezing rain, less sleet. You get the idea there. And again, this is exactly what we were calling for yesterday. We talked about the sleet totals might cut down on the ice accumulation. I looked at some of the power outage maps, and we're doing actually pretty good, right? I bet you, a lot of folks are with power today, and that's largely thanks to how we started out with sleet, and that precluded a lot of the heavy ice accumulation right from the get-go. Now remember, yesterday when we were talking about, well, which one of these models are going to be right? The one with more freezing rain or the one with more sleet? So I would say clearly the one with more sleet was probably leaned a little bit more accurate. But yeah, clearly we got into some freezing rain, particularly from the triangle east and southward. So Chris says Pittsburgh had a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch of snow and sleet and little to nothing in trees and freezing rain. So anyway, thanks for that, Chris. And by the way, folks, you can drop your what you've observed so far in the question box as well. That would be helpful. So anyway, for those who are watching this live. Okay, what else? So that's what we've gotten so far. Again, thankfully that sleet helped to keep the power outages intact for the most part. All right, so we got this intermission we're in right now. What about when the second half of the event comes through late this afternoon and this evening? What are we going to get out of that? And it could be still some sleet yet to be had from Raleigh north and westward, particularly the further north and west you go of the triangle, the more likely you are to have sleet. For example, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, Burlington, Roxborough, maybe over toward Lexington. The usual places along and north of 85 will probably have a little bit of sleet. But even there, you're going to get some freezing rain because, again, with that last batch, there's going to be because it's more of a frontal type system, you get a lot of warming ahead of fronts. And while the warming might be more above the surface than at the surface, at some point, everybody's going to switch to freezing rain before this event ends. So a tenth to a quarter of an inch of additional ice along, actually north and west of Raleigh. So there still is a potential for a quick uptick in power outages this evening and overnight tonight with this last burst. And let me tell you, precip rates with this last frontal band, they're going to be pretty intense. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to stack up with accumulations of freezing rain, because sometimes when it rains on top of icy surfaces so fast, so hard, it could tend to run off before it has a chance to freeze. Okay, but I would say moderate amounts, if it's not like really coming down in buckets, freezing rain that is, we have a pretty solid chance of getting an additional quarter inch of ice, where you see the darker yellow or orange shades on this map on the right. Yesterday we were really, I wouldn't say struggling, but there was a great deal of uncertainty as how far north the precip would change completely to rain. And our forecast for that's still pretty much in line with what we were thinking yesterday. Maybe a little smidge further south and east for the freezing rain than what we were talking about yesterday. That's indicative of the robust nature of the cold air that is in place. So the last I looked at the thermometer here at our office in Raleigh, we were at 20 degrees. And that actually fell from previous hours. So believe it or not, some places are still cooling down even more. So anyway, by the time we get to tomorrow morning and it's all over, this is what we expect the event totals to be. Okay, so not a whole lot of additional sleet. So the sleet and what's been observed so far are going to look pretty similar, right? But look at that event total freezing rain. The red is where we think we're going to get that solid extra layer of ice with this evening's event. So if you're in the red, there's a pretty good chance still that you might lose power. So we're talking right along I-85, maybe over toward Roanoke Rapids, down toward Rocky Mount, Lewisburg, maybe the up near Falls Lake, Durham, Pittsboro, Asheboro, Albemarle, down to Troy. That general area you see there in red will have the best chances to see power outages. By the time this is all said and done, places like Wilson, Smithfield, Lillington, Southern Pines, Wadesboro will probably have as much of a quarter inch as much as a quarter inch of storm total ice accumulation. Again, even there could be some power outages. So keep in mind, hazards and impacts are still yet to come. All right. So again, once we get past this event, then it's bitterly cold. Temperatures are now expected to get into the upper 30s to lower 40s tomorrow. So that's a little warmer than what we talked about yesterday for tomorrow. So maybe there's an opportunity for melting. But I'll tell you, as I walked around a little bit ago, it's that combination of sleet and freezing rain here in Raleigh has created quite an ice layer, an ice pack on the surfaces. So it might take a while. And that ice, whatever hasn't melted or gone away tomorrow, is gonna lock back in overnight, Monday night into Tuesday morning. So black ice should be pretty widespread Tuesday morning. Okay, and then it's just a cold week ahead. Look at those numbers. I mean, we're gonna struggle to get out of the 30s pretty much all week long. Okay, and teens will be common for lows each night this week. So just a very, about as wintry as it gets in terms of temperatures for here in central North Carolina. Wind chills again, single digits or below zero Monday night and Tuesday morning. We tweak this. You'll get these. Oh, by the way, I'm going to email these slides and post them on weather.gov/Raleigh probably within the hour after we're done here with this update. So I've tweaked this timeline a little bit to represent an afternoon, evening, and overnight period. And again, travel's just going to remain hazardous right through overnight tonight into tomorrow. Notice snow is green all the way through. We're not expecting any more snow. Sleet and freezing rain will be what's in the offing for precip types. Again, if you're south and east of Fayetteville, yeah, it'll probably go to rain this evening. But if you're north and west of Fayetteville, central I-95 corridor northward and westward, you might end up with more freezing rain this evening than rain. Okay, so keep that in mind. And again, we're going to elevate that risk for fallen trees and power outages this evening and overnight. Okay, because another quarter inch of ice, if you get that much, should definitely increase the number of those kinds of reports. All right, so just taking you down the key messages. A winter storm warning remains in effect for most of central North Carolina. Precip rates intensity will be mostly light from early to mid-afternoon today, then increase again from west to east later this afternoon, arriving earlier in the west, of course, and that will linger through this evening. Precip types the rest of the event, particularly for this evening and early overnight. So for precip types, we're talking sleet and freezing rain across the Piedmont, mainly west of US 1, including the Triangle and points north and west, and the northern I-95 corridor from basically Wilson northward. Okay, the freezing rain is expected to change to just rain from basically Benson, Johnston County, where the I-95 and I-40 kind of meet right there. From basically there south and east is where the best chance to just go to plain rain, okay? And again, that's a smidge further east and south than what we were talking about yesterday, but still pretty close and in line with where we think, the best chance for rain. Still could see some power outages and general disruptions, fallen trees, hazardous driving. It's already hazardous driving, so we can put a check mark next to that one. But power outages, fallen trees still could be possible, particularly when that second batch comes through. And then less than an inch of sleet north and west of the Triangle, but up to a quarter inch of additional ice. Again, west of a line from Roanoke Rapids to Raleigh to Pittsboro to Albemarle. East of that line, little less in the way of how much additional ice, but the only reason it's less is because those areas might have a chance to change over to rain, okay? If that changeover to rain didn't happen, it would be pretty much a quarter inch of ice for all of central North Carolina. But the only reason we have those amounts a little bit lighter to the south for this evening is because of the expectation that at some point it might switch to rain. All right, and then this whole thing will be over by 3 a.m. from the Triangle westward and 7 a.m. east of the Triangle. Lingering a little bit longer east of the Triangle just, through about daybreak tomorrow, and then cold, okay, after that. All right, so here's how to measure ice, okay? So what you want to do is measure the amount of, if you're going to measure on a branch, measure the ice on each side of, where you can see the clear. Don't include the actual branch itself, but measure the clear frozen ice on either side of that branch, and then average the two measurements to the nearest tenth of an inch, okay? So measure it on the left side of that stick and measure it on the right side of the stick, and then take the average, and that's how you measure radial ice. On a flat surface, you just kind of measure it like the photo there on the right says. You just stick it on the surface and see how high it goes. Okay? So, Rodney, thanks for that report. The temperature report in Wilson, 27 there. Appreciate that. I got a report here from Corey, Madison, North Carolina. Still seeing snow and sleet. No freezing rain. Okay. All right. Just got a report from Siler City area, same as Pittsboro, snow, sleet, ice, and trees. So far, so good. Awesome. Chris is asking, what time do you estimate the last band being through the basically middle, dead center of North Carolina, Chatham County? Looking around 10, what were we saying there about 10 p.m.? Let's see here, being through. Oh, okay. So, again, I would just, I would say after midnight, Chris. When's it going to be all through your area? I would say that after midnight, just to be on the safe side. All right, I'll get back to the questions here in just a minute, but I do want to switch over to a couple other things I want to show you. Bear with me here for just a second. We've got a neat website, weather.gov/GIS. That is so easy to remember. If it's weather you love, it's weather.gov and then add /GIS on the end. And this is kind of like the main place where you can get every single possible layer of data that the National Weather Service prepares. Okay, so if you open up this layer, it is so extensive. So if you're looking for something that we produce, it's here. This is where you can get it. And you can plot it on this map, or you can say on any of these, you can open it up, and if you click this attachment button, you can download the actual data file so you can plot it in your own GIS tool. Okay, but I just thought I would use this as a way to show these ground truth reports that we've gotten, and local storm reports, so you can see there's some of these various reports. Just under 1/4 inch of ice, basically south and east of Raleigh, and we're seeing various amounts of freezing rain and ice, 3/10 of an inch there in Johnston County and points east. And then as you go up towards the triad, you're seeing amounts over an inch of sleet. So if you're curious who's getting what, that's a great tool. Go to weather.gov/GIS, and you can go down here where it says, where did I get that from? Oh, right here under weather event related data, and then local storm reports. But gosh, you could spend all day just going through all these layers. All right, what else do I want to show? I want to show live radar. And again, as I mentioned, this is kind of like intermission, if you will, between these two features. And let me zoom out to the wider perspective. And again, look how I would say intermission, but there still might be a few patches of sleet or freezing rain that would move up across during the afternoon hours. But generally, for again, when you're looking at it from the 50,000 foot view, there's a big break in this precipitation. So if I put on satellite, satellite confirms it. Clearly, the satellite is not, you can see a lot more drier air in here, okay? So we get a little intermission, and then look at the cloud band back to our west, and then as I plot radar on there, this is live data. And the color code program tries to figure out what type it is. And look how west of the mountains, how it's warmed up west of the mountains. We've got rain all the way up to Charleston, West Virginia from the Gulf Coast. So that warm air is really trying to push its way north. But as I show you temperatures, look how west of the mountains, we got temperatures really surging up through the 30s and 40s, while east of the mountains, you guessed it, the cold air is dammed up. We call this cold air damming. It gets trapped at the surface east of the mountains. So when this band you see here west of the mountains, when you see this band here move eastward this evening and tonight, it's gonna come across this really cold air at the surface, and that's why we are still expecting the second half of this event to produce more freezing rain and sleet. Eventually some of this 32 degree air you see here, and actually it's not too far from freezing right at the coast. And again, we talked about this yesterday. So if I drew a line where the 32 degree mark is, roughly right there, okay, and remember, here's the cold front somewhere in here. I'm doing or maybe it's more like here, but there's a front in here, okay, and as fronts, bear with me here for just a second. As fronts move east, the wind turns from the south ahead of it, and it's going to try to pull up some of this warm air northward. You see this above freezing air, it's going to try to get yanked northward this evening as this front moves to the east. Okay, so sorry I'm scribbling all over the map here. I hope that made sense. So again, here's kind of your prefrontal squall line, your prefrontal shower and thunderstorm band, and the southerly air ahead of it is going to try to push up some of this, above freezing air northward. But if you're kind of stuck in the low 30s right now, like in this general low 20s and teens, it's really going to be hard for this warm air to really push in there. This cold air is locked in. So again, where's that battle line going to be drawn between frozen precip or freezing precip and rain? Again, that's a tough prediction at this point. But look at these values. I mean, we're talking middle of the daytime here, and we've got mid-teens. That's why we've gotten what we've gotten. That's why so far, and that's why we're expecting when this batch of rain moves over the mountains, it's going to fall out of the cloud as rain, but it's going to encounter this sub-freezing temperatures at the surface and freeze. Okay, so freezing rain. All right. So let's look at some model simulations. First, I'm going to start with the high-res rapid refresh, and we will take you through that with time, model fill. Let me turn off the temperatures, and let's run you through this. Let's see. Bear with me here for just a second. So this would be a 1 p.m. This is basically right now. So it's doing okay. I mean, not bad. Not perfect. Model simulation of precip and precip type is never going to be spot on perfect, but it gives us a rough idea of what to expect. So as we move forward in time, look how it moves over the mountains, moves east of I-77, makes it to the Triad as early as 5 p.m. It could be, this freezing rain could be underway and falling in earnest here by 5 p.m. from Greensboro to Winston-Salem down toward Albemarle and points west, okay? And then an hour later, look how much more progress it makes east. So this is 6 p.m. Southern Pines, Raleigh, Henderson, Roanoke Rapids, starting to see that leading edge of that freezing rain. Again, this orange means there could be some sleet mixed in. But again, there's so much warm air coming in upstairs that it's hard to see this not going freezing rain across all of central North Carolina. And then this is 7 p.m. this evening. And interestingly, look how this changeover to rain is a little further east than what we were talking about yesterday. That cold air is really entrenched across central North Carolina. But with time, I think eventually it will lift north. Maybe just a smidge, or maybe not. So this particular model thinks that it's going to be cold enough for freezing rain all the way to Fayetteville, and staying freezing rain even in northern Sampson County, Goldsboro maybe even staying freezing rain, Rocky Mount you're freezing rain, Roanoke Rapids, Raleigh you're freezing rain through the whole event. So anyway, that's going to be tough to see exactly where that switches over. This time frame right here is that's 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11, and look how there's a little bit of spotty freezing rain back behind it. That's why, Chris, when you asked about Chatham County, I didn't want to say you'd be in the clear by 10 p.m. There could be some little spritz of freezing rain that linger into the overnight hours, okay? So, but the bulk of it should be gone by midnight. Okay, so that's one model. Let's take a look at a different model here, and let's run this through. This is current time. Maybe running a little too slow and getting that first part out of here, but you get the idea. It's got the same picture, more moving in from the west. It has the leading edge of that round 2, more in the way of sleet at the onset. So, but even there, oops, I went back in time. My apologies. Let me get back to where, okay, I was right there. And then eventually it does change to freezing rain, even in the Triad. Let me go back here. So that time right there is 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Maybe even cold enough even in the Triangle for some sleet. So again, this is a much colder solution than what we were talking about yesterday. And it's possible we might get this whole thing through mostly with freezing rain across all of central North Carolina. This model, though, does show it ending right at the very end. I mean, like the last few drops of precip falling as rain. Okay, so again, but by then I don't really think it's going to help with any melting. This is not enough of a duration of plain rain to really help with melting. Okay, unfortunately we're gonna have to wait till tomorrow in the sunshine. Okay, I thought maybe this rain yesterday when we were talking, I was kind of excited that if you get east of Fayetteville, south of Goldsboro, that there might be enough rain to kind of just flush everything out in terms of ice accumulation. But that may not be the case. I mean, that could still happen, but I think this is definitely a colder signal than what we were talking about yesterday. Okay, and then finally, let's look at one more. This model did really good yesterday with showing what would happen overnight into this morning. So let me use that as a reasonable approximation, and it's basically just showing again this you see right here. See how speckled it is? That's just kind of like a light mist. That's not a heavy precip maker. That's just kind of little bits and spurts if you will, of maybe sleet and freezing rain this afternoon. Not a lot. You see how like speckled that is? That's not a steady freezing rain. That's not gonna add much to what we got this morning. But then the second batch, it has it getting into the triad again by 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Okay, so the furthest north that it gets the rain is basically up to that intersection of 95 and 40 that I was talking about. But perhaps as far south as Fayetteville, you might see some freezing rain up through at least 8 or 9 o'clock this evening before it does finally change to rain for about the last hour. I mean, I suppose we'll take any rain we can get, right, to help the situation. But the main point is that, let me remove this altogether. And it looks like with this evening's precipitation, it looks like essentially if you draw a line kind of right like so, it almost appears as though it's going to pretty much stay the temperature at or below freezing, so that it either falls as sleet, but more likely freezing rain, with the best chance for rain being, again, kind of east of this line. Okay. So a little colder, like I said, than we talked about yesterday, and that's kind of the way we see things shaking out. And again, if I go back, the one way I want to kind of wrap this up is, again, to show you how much more we're expecting. Okay, so as much as a quarter of an inch of freezing rain. Again, you know, it's the air is the coldest. My apologies here. Let me. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Let me erase that. The air will be the and then I bear with me for just a second. This is how much additional that right there. Okay. Right in this area right here, north and west of the triangle, we expect the greatest amount of ice accumulation from that freezing rain with the second round. And again, that's because it's the coldest there. Okay, so that's where I think the impacts to travel and to power lines and tree lines could be the greatest. South and east of that line, there's, you know, a reasonable chance that the last hour could change to rain, but we might need to tweak this over a little bit to include Wilson, Rocky Mount, you know, if it does indeed stay cold enough for freezing rain even there. So again, I would say that line I drew earlier, which was kind of somewhere like this, north of this line, will probably have it the worst in terms of impacts this evening with round 2, worst due to freezing rain. All right. So that pretty much concludes what I have for you here on this 12:30 Sunday afternoon.